Well, as we've been hearing, the Conservative conference in Birmingham has got off to a very rocky start, mainly due to the influence of the UK Independence Party. So we've got representatives from both here in the studio to defend their case. This week, the Conservative MP for Macclesfield, David Rutley, and UKIP's Euro MP for North West England, Louise Bours. David, let me start with you. You need to get over to Birmingham pretty quick before David Cameron worries he's lost another one, don't you?
There's no chance of me going to UKIP, don't worry about that. No, look, of course it's frustrating, this defection, but to my mind it's completely counterproductive. You know, I know Mark Reckless well, I know Douglas Carswell well. They wanted a referendum for Europe, and the best chance to do that is with the Conservative winning at the next election.
It's terribly damaging to the party, particularly on the eve of conference. Any more MPs anywhere in the North West heading your way?
Well, I couldn't possibly comment on that, Arif, at the moment. But I think one thing's for certain. I think what this has shown is that even MPs within the Conservative Party, his own people, are not trusting Cameron on the issue of Europe. And I just think this might just open the floodgates.
We're also joined now from Birmingham by the Conservative campaigner David Skelton, whose organisation Renewal is trying to win back support in the north, and here in the studio by Dr Rob Ford from the University of Manchester, who's an expert on UKIP. David Skelton, let me start with you first. You were with us last year talking about the Conservative challenge here in the northwest of England. Have they made much progress in the preceding year?
Good morning. I think they've made great progress over the past year. First off, can I just say, I think something we all agree on is that Labour have completely fallen out of touch with voters in the North West. But since last year, the Conservatives have a real positive record to work on. 74,000 new jobs created since 2010, 50,000 new businesses.
Louise, let me bring you in. A pretty positive view there of the Tory party in this region, but you would say actually we're able to win Tory voters over.
I'm not too sure which northwest he's talking about, but I don't think it's northwest of England. We are the opposition in the northwest of England. It's Labour or UKIP, and a fine example of that is going to be the Middleton and Hayward by-election. If you want to get Labour out, you have to vote UKIP. There's no point voting Conservative. There's no point in voting Liberal Democrat. So I'm a bit confused by data, but you know, fair play to him. Let him carry on. But I really do think he's not really looking at the figures.
How are you attracting Tory supporters?
You know, I think Tories, the grassroots Tory, has been... Our message resonates with them anyway, I think, and you can see that by the number of councillors who are defecting.
Which message?
All our messages, all our policies resonate, whether it's Europe, immigration, most importantly, local government, where we don't have a whip system for our councillors. And I think that's why we've had so many defections from the Tories just recently.
Well, not loads, one or two.
Well, we've had two from Cheshire. Three on Congleton Town Council.
I've been out canvassing in Macclesfield over the last couple of weeks, speaking to hundreds of people, getting a feel what their views are, and only one person mentioned UKIP in that whole thing.
But, you know, Macclesfield constituency, very much like my own of Congleton, we know they're very blue, and that's a different thing. But where we're interested
there was a sea change. I don't see
we are parking our tanks on Labour's lawn. That's the thing.
Let me bring in Rob Ford. Where do you put the UKIP-Tory battle in this region?
Now we're seeing UKIP completely supplanting them as the only available opposition to Labour in those cities. Can
they get it back in time for the next general election, given that they didn't manage it at the previous one?
In a word, no. I don't really think they can in the northwestern cities.
As we've mentioned, Louise has just come back from Doncaster for the party conference, and before he set off to reveal their latest signing, the party's leader, Nigel Farage, spoke to our reporter, Liz Wallace, at Westminster. Liz asked him why, European elections aside, UKIP hasn't made the same breakthrough here as in other parts of the country.
One thing I found with the Wythenshawe by-election, which was fought before Christmas, was there are parts of the North West where people are just not that familiar with UKIP. And remember, political parties are voluntary organisations. It takes time to build up voluntary structures. It takes time to find the right people to stand as candidates in local elections. So, you know, there is more work to do. We do have a by-election coming up, of course, which will make quite a big impact on what our prospects are next year. But I would remind you that in the European elections we did return 3 MEPs, so it's not as if there isn't a UKIP vote in the North West, because there is.
Isn't what we saw in Sale East and Wythenshawe telling us that you're more likely just to deliver a Labour majority?
No, we take far more votes from Labour in the north of England than we take from the Conservatives. Fact. Simple as. But also, you know, one of the factors that people haven't really priced into this is we take a lot of votes from non-voters too. So to try and predict what the impact of UKIP will be on the other parties next year, I think at this stage is virtually impossible.
Which of your policies do you think are going to particularly appeal to people living in the North West?
Well, I think the idea that we want people to pay lower, people in work to pay lower taxes. Now, the idea that nurses, for example, have been dragged into 40p tax, I mean, frankly, is ridiculous. But I have a hunch. I have a hunch that by the time the general election comes along next year, that actually immigration will be back to being the #1 issue. This idea of controlling our borders properly will be the #1 issue, and UKIP is the only party offering a solution.
Rob, what did you make of that?
Well, I think that Nigel Farage made a number of rather good points there. He's correct that it's unpredictable who UKIP take the votes from in this part of the country. It does vary a lot from seat to seat. He's correct that UKIP haven't really built the kind of local organisations, local routes they need to really break through here. One thing I would disagree with him is I'm not sure that the vote for UKIP up here yet is a policy-based vote. I think a lot of it, and you saw it in Nigel Farage's speech at the Doncaster conference, a lot of it is about mobilising disaffection with, resentment towards very long established and often completely politically dominant local labour organisations. Disaffection that's often been there for decades and hasn't had a political voice, and they're providing that political voice.
There is always the chance for a protest vote. And people have done that.
Come on, we've got rid of that. We've got rid of that now.
There's always a chance of protest.
It's a very long protest vote, though, David, isn't it? It's going on for years.
No, it's not.
It absolutely is. We started at the local elections, a couple of it, and we've just continued and continued and continued.
No, you did okay in the European elections. You did okay in the European elections.
I think, didn't we win? Didn't we win?
Did we win? You certainly did not win in Cheshire East. You certainly didn't in Cheshire East.
But we won Cheshire West.
No, well, you did in Cheshire East.
Well, actually, you didn't win. Labour won.
Well, yes, but we still returned 3 MEPs, and we won the overall election. We won the European elections.
The real contest is going to be the general election.
We
won. If you do want this European referendum, then frankly, the only chance is a Conservative government.
Well,
absolutely.
I think people now don't trust Cameron. I mean, he said, yes, OK, I'm the only Prime Minister who can deliver a referendum. But the fact of the matter is, we know that he is pro-European. He's going to campaign to stay within with his, renegotiating.
Well, that's his business, but at least he'll give you a referendum.
He's going to put it to the people.
His MPs do not believe it.
He's going to put it to the people.
Even Douglas Carswell stated he defected because he was told by Cameron's own people that they would give people just enough so that they keep us there. People do not trust him.
Okay, we principles on that one.
Rob Ford, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Now, he may have forgotten immigration and the bit about the budget, but Ed Miliband did remember the NHS. He put it back to the centre of political debate during the Labour Party conference here in Manchester. This week, the city itself extended a consultation over plans to reform local hospitals. Our reporter Kevin Fitzpatrick's been asking how easy it is to change the health service.
We will transform our NHS.
Here in Manchester, the Labour conference has moved on. They've made their promises for how to improve the NHS.
Louise, you want privatisation of the NHS, don't you?
No, absolutely not. And I think
don't you? Well, why did Paul Nuttall write the very existence of the NHS stifles competition? I congratulate the government for bringing a whiff of privatisation into the beleaguered NHS.
If anybody had listened to my speech, because I am the health spokesperson, and if anybody had listened to my speech, I think whatever Paul's personal opinion, and he's entitled to hold
he's the deputy leader.
Well, he's still entitled to his own personal opinion. However, what I made very clear in the speech that I gave to conference, we keep the NHS free at the point of delivery and of need. We abolish the bureaucracy, we licence the managers, and we make sure those people take responsibility for their massive errors that have occurred over the past few years.
So does Paul still hold these personal views?
Well, Paul's personal views are his personal views. I can't speak on his behalf. But like I say, as far as the policy...
Doesn't this just show the
there's
muddle
no muddle.
UKIP?
There's absolutely no muddle. Our
muddle.
policy is very, very clear. And for anybody who wants to listen to my speech, we're also going to stand shoulder to shoulder with Unite and Len McCluskey and fight against TTIP. Well, he wrote to me, so the thing, and I held the letter up for everyone to see at conference.
Okay.
That's the thing.
Louise, in the unlikely event that you were advising the Conservative Party, what would you say that they had to do at this conference?
I don't think any advice at all is going to stop the fracture of their MP. I think the damage has been done, and I think Cameron has got to take responsibility for that. And I think what we're going to see over the leading up now to the general election is just more of the same.
David,
I really do.
Thanks to my guest.